Shalom, friends, and welcome to Walking the Ancient Path, where we journey back into the language, landscape, and life rhythms of the Scriptures in a lighter, more accessible way, exploring the world of the Bible as its original listeners would have experienced it. Today, we'll pick up our in-depth exploration of the entire book of Galatians, verse by verse, and unpack each passage within the context of organic ancient Hebrew thought in chapter 1. Verse 14, and profited in the Jews' religion above many my equals in mine own nation, being more exceedingly zealous of the traditions of my fathers.
I was advancing in the path of the Yehudi tradition, beyond many of my peers in my own clan, burning with zeal, overflowing in my devotion to the handed-down customs of my fathers.
Profited. Paul was outpacing his peers, climbing the ranks of Pharisaic honor more quickly than most his age. In the Jews' religion, again not the Torah itself but the web of rabbinic rulings and interpretations built up around it, Paul had mastered the Yehudi tradition and embodied its strictest demands. Above many my equals in mine own nation. Among his contemporaries, Paul was considered a rising star, his reputation spreading throughout Jerusalem and beyond. In clan imagery, he was like a young warrior whose name started to echo in the camp. Being more exceedingly zealous, the word zeal, qahal in Hebrew, evokes the image of fire, intense burning like glowing white-hot coals. Paul's fire, however, was misdirected, consuming brothers instead of upholding covenant truth. Traditions of my fathers, these were ancestral rulings and customs treasured like family heirlooms. In Hebrew imagery, they were cords passed down from father to son, linking each generation to the fence around the Torah. Paul admits he held on to these cords with all his strength.
Verse 15, but when it pleased God, who separated me from my mother's womb and called me by his grace.
But when it delighted Yahweh, the one who had set me apart from my mother's womb, and who summoned me by his favor.
When it pleased God, in Hebrew thought, this is not a cold decision but one of delight, pleasure, and joy. Yahweh's will is depicted as the Father's heart swelling with happiness to act. Who separated me from my mother's womb. This echoes the call of prophets like Jeremiah and Isaiah. It's like a midwife preparing a newborn for a special purpose. Yahweh marked Paul from birth for his covenant work, and called me by his grace. The call, kara, is the shepherd's voice, summoning with authority and intimacy. Chen, favor, is the Father stooping down to lift Paul, not because of his worth, but because of his own covenant kindness.
Verse 16, to reveal his Son in me, that I might preach him among the heathen. Immediately I conferred not with flesh and blood.
To pull back the veil and make his Son shine within me, so that I might proclaim him among the nations. When this happened, I did not at once consult with flesh and blood.
To reveal his Son in me, Paul is not speaking of mere information but an inner unveiling. The Son of Yahweh seen not only to him but within him, that I might preach him among the heathen. Paul's calling is a clan mission, to be the messenger carrying the victory news to distant camps, the peoples outside Israel, the nations. Immediately I conferred not with flesh and blood. He did not turn to human counselors or rabbis for confirmation. In Hebrew imagery, this is like saying he did not sit down at the fire with men to ask for their approval. The message was already burning in him from the breath of Yahweh.
Verse 17, neither went I up to Jerusalem to them which were apostles before me, but I went into Arabia and returned again unto Damascus.
I did not go up to Jerusalem to those who were Shaliachim before me. Instead, I walked into the wilderness of Arabia, and afterward I returned once more to Damascus.
Neither went I up to Jerusalem. In Hebrew imagery, to go up, Allah, to Jerusalem means to ascend to the city of Yahweh's throne. Paul emphasizes that he did not seek authority or approval from the elders of the qahal there. To them which were apostles before me, the other Shaliachim, sent ones, had already been commissioned by Yeshua, but Paul did not immediately align himself with them. His journey started elsewhere by direct appointment of the anointed. But I went into Arabia. Arabia here evokes the wilderness stretching towards Sinai, the place of revelation, covenant, and encounter with Yahweh. In Hebrew thought, the wilderness is where men are stripped of their own strength and taught to rely on Yahweh's voice. Paul spent about 3 years in Arabia being shaped alone with the Father before returning to Damascus. And returned again unto Damascus. Damascus, the very place where the light of Yeshua first struck him down, became once more a waypoint. This closing of the circle shows how his calling began and deepened outside of Jerusalem's council chambers.
Verse 18. Then after 3 years I went up to Jerusalem to see Peter, and abode with him 15 days.
Then, after 3 years, I went up to Jerusalem to visit Cephas, and I stayed with him for 15 days.
After 3 years, in Hebrew imagery, 3 years represents the cycle of planting and growth before a tree's fruit is offered. Leviticus 19:23. Paul's call was already rooted before he ever sought Jerusalem's leaders. I went up to Jerusalem, again to go up. Allah means to ascend to Yahweh's city, the mountain of his dwelling. This ascent was not for approval but for fellowship. To see Peter, that Paul uses Peter's Aramaic name, Cephas, meaning rock or stone. In Hebrew imagery, to see is more than just looking. It implies knowing, spending time with, and examining closely. Paul was interested in building relationships, not just offering a formal greeting. Abode with him for 15 days, a brief yet meaningful stay, enough for fellowship, storytelling, and mutual recognition. In Hebrew symbolism, 2 weeks and a day represent a complete measure of hospitality, sharing bread, listening to testimonies, and tying cords of trust between them.
Verse 19. But other of the apostles saw I none, save James, the Lord's brother.
But of the other Shaliachim I saw none, only Yaakov, the brother of our master.
Other of the apostles. Paul makes it clear his contact in Jerusalem was very limited. He did not make the rounds of the entire council of sent ones. His authority did not come from their collective approval. Save James, Yaakov, is the brother of Yeshua, and a pillar in the Jerusalem qahal. The name Yaakov traces back to the patriarch Jacob, the heel grabber, the one who wrestled with Elohim and became Israel. This connection holds deep covenant significance for Hebrew listeners. The Lord's brother, unlike Peter, who was called from fishing boats, James grew up in the same household as Yeshua. In Hebrew imagery, this makes him both witness and brother of the clan, one whose closeness to the anointed carried unique weight.
Verse 20. Now the things which I write unto you, behold, before God, I lie not.
What I am writing to you now, see it clearly, before Yahweh Himself, I do not lie.
The things which I write unto you, Paul emphasizes the importance of the written word itself. In Hebrew imagery, written testimony is like a covenant document, binding and weighty, not idle chatter. Behold, a call for readers to lift their eyes and pay attention, to see it clearly. It is like saying, fix this in your sight. Don't miss it. Before God, Paul places his statement under the gaze of Yahweh. In Hebrew imagery, this is akin to speaking at the tent entrance in full view of the clan leader, leaving no room for deception. I lie not, a solemn guarantee. In Hebrew thought, falsehood is like a twisted path, but truth, emet, is solid ground beneath your feet. Paul affirms that his words are grounded on that solid ground.
We'll pause here and continue in our next chat.
If you listeners have areas of interest you'd like to explore further, questions or comments, please don't hesitate to let us know.